Lovely shot there of the drill in 2019, actually, and something about what we're up to here at Stillwater. Battery precious metals in a premier U.S. mining district. Fantastic potential for grade and scale of battery metals here, and we'll be glad to share more on that. We're part of the Metallic group of companies. This is three exploration stage independent publicly listed companies that share a common vision, and that vision is acquire an asset in the bear market part of the metal cycle, a brownfields position beside a major mine or deposit, 100% ownership, and then get to work with some of the best people and build a good database. And everything is done with a view to advancing something that would interest a major. If you like what you see at Group 10, please feel free to check out the other two companies as well. For Group 10, that means 3 district-scale land positions. We have the Stillwater West position in Montana, Black Lake Drayton high-grade gold in Ontario beside Treasury, and the Kluane project in the Yukon, another PGE nickel-copper project. We're going to be focusing entirely on Stillwater today, and that is the one that's caught the market's interest. I think the Black Lake Drayton project is compelling in an M&A sense, as is Kluane, and we'll touch on them briefly at the end. These are all district scale assets. They all fit that model of being beside some of the best mines or deposits of their type. And a key distinction with our peers, we have 100% ownership on all these assets. We've been at this for a few years now through the bear market cycle. In each case, we've got a substantial database. We're bringing new geologic models and a world-class team. And with that, you have potential for world-class discovery. Focus again on Stillwater. The management team has a proven track record. This is an accomplished team. Greg Johnson is chair. He was a big part of NovaGold, and he saw that from 10 cents a share to $2 billion in market cap. That's the sort of potential that we see in all three companies in the Metallic group. At Stillwater specifically, it shows the same footprint that they saw in the early days at Galore Creek and Donlin, two massive discoveries. So that multi-kilometer footprint is an essential starting point in these projects, and we have a team that can take it there. Myself, I've been in the mining since 1990, and I'm a founder of Group 10. Invite you to do a deeper dive on the teams, by the way, on the website. All this material is publicly available. We're going to try to focus on drill results today. The technical team is truly world-class, and we've been able to attract this caliber of person thanks to the Stillwater asset. Dr. Craig Bowe, world-renowned in ultramafic circles. He's been underground at Stillwater in the 1980s. We're glad to bring him back. And these three names are give us continuity to the terrific database that we inherited from juniors before us. Tens of millions of dollars in drilling and geochemical, geophysical surveys. Mike Austinson drilled the 12,000 meters of core that we have in the core shack as part of the broader 31,000 meters in the database. And Justin Modreau is the vendor. And he's the one that staked the initial claims after the bankruptcy of the juniors previous to us and brought us the opportunity, and we're grateful for that. And that is essentially how a junior came to own 100% of such an iconic district. We're very pleased to have validation from Dr. David Broughton, who is Robert Friedland's right-hand man at Ivanhoe, and he's credited with co-discovering the Platte Reef deposit in South Africa. And that's huge for us because that is exactly our target model here at Stillwater. So to have him give us early insight onto how to drill this and advance it, and to recognize that the setting was correct and the mineralogy was correct was a huge step up. Stillwater is one of the biggest and best and most prospective and productive magmatic systems in the world. Being magmatic, like Voisey's Bay, like Bushveld, like Norilsk, it's a nickel sulfide system. Even our neighbors are mining nickel sulfide, our neighbor being Sibanye. So we have the battery grade nickel that Tesla and others are looking for. The district is known for palladium and platinum. These are the highest grade palladium platinum mines in the world and the largest outside of South Africa and Russia. And we add significant rhodium to that too, as you'll see in today's results. We've just drilled 11.6 meters at what is mine grade in South Africa. And that's very strategic in the US. There's very little mine supply of rhodium in North America. Also cobalt, 80% in the Congo, and critical in battery metals. We have good exposure to gold, kind of three levels there. We have it broadly across Stillwater in that Platreef style basket. We have it in one discrete area at Stillwater drill defined that we'll show you in a minute here. And we actually have ideas on how to expand that. And then we have the high-grade gold project in Ontario beside Treasury. Broadly at Stillwater, we're about a third nickel and a third palladium in terms of that Platreef style basket and our exposure to commodities, and then 1/3 being the other. We're very happy with that. All these commodities look really good in terms of marketing and price. Palladium, rhodium, of course, at elevated prices. Platinum coming up nicely. Fuel cell demand driving that. And then the battery metals. And many people calling out for good supply of low carbon nickel sulfide, class 1 nickel in first world jurisdictions in particular. So the objective overall and the potential here is to become a primary US-based source of battery and precious metals. And we certainly see potential to do that. We just drilled some really nice looking high-grade nickel sulfide over widths. We've always had the PGEs and other components. 5 of these commodities have been listed as critical by the US government, and they're looking to secure domestic supplies. And we're in a premier US district that has 3 mines and a smelter. And that has to add up well and favorably for Group 10. There's a look at the land position. We essentially share the Stillwater complex with Sibanye. Sibanye is now about a $12 billion market cap. They, of course, bought the Stillwater mines in 2017. The Stillwater complex is about 40 kilometers by 8 kilometers on surface. It's a layered magmatic system, looks a lot like the Bushveld. Talk about that in a minute. It's highly prospective for all the commodities we just listed. It was actually mined for high-grade nickel and copper in the late 1800s on our portion of the claim block. It's known for the J.M. Reef deposit. This is including past production of about 14 million ounces. It's currently about 100 million ounce deposit. It's 17 grams per ton palladium platinum grade. It's a single magmatic horizon just sitting there as that purple line. And that says a lot about the metal that was in the pulses of magma that created the Stillwater complex. And we're, of course, sitting just below that stratigraphically. They operate 3 mines in the district and a smelter just off the screen to the northeast. We own 100% of Stillwater West, 54 square kilometer claim block, and we just recently announced Stillwater East, earlier stage, but the same compelling Platreef style bulk mineable targets in the lower Stillwater complex. When we say lower Stillwater complex, we mean the purples and oranges shown there. Lower down in the layered system. In the upper portion in the greens, you get reef type deposits. There's our neighbor's J.M. Reef deposit. We have a picket pin above them and our focus in those lower portions. This is a well mineralized district, and yet it's underexplored for reasons that we'll get into. There's terrific potential here. It's also a very large land position, 25 kilometers across on the main claim block and 7 kilometers on the other. Quick comparison of the Stillwater and Bushveld complexes, because this is going to come up a few times in the presentation. Stillwater complex shown in the middle. The J.M. Reef, the productive mines of Montana, were found in the 1970s by taking direct parallels from the Bushveld complex, South Africa. Merensky and J.M. Reef are at the exact same location in a very similar system. Similar ages to the system as well. Stillwater 2.7 billion years old, Bushveld 2 billion years old. So there's a lot of commonality between them. Bushveld went ahead with the development and construction of Anglo-American's Mahalaquena mine in 1993, and that never continued at Stillwater, despite known parallels between them. We have now identified, confirmed that potential in those lower portions, and we'll be talking more about that. This is how the system, that layered sequence looks at Stillwater. Again, this is 8 kilometers thick, so it's a massive system. In the upper portion, in the banded series, the layers are still discrete, and you see the reef deposits, narrow, high grade, including the J.M. Reef being mined by our neighbor, and our Picket Pin Reef, which will be the subject of an upcoming news release. We have 6 reef type target areas at Stillwater. Our focus is on those lower systems and those bigger magmatic systems, bigger magmatic events in the lower portion of the complex. And again, the target here is Anglo American's Mahalaquena mine, Ivanhoe's Platreef, and even Platinum Group Metals Waterberg project, 400 million ounces total collectively between them in the Platreef district, tens of billions of pounds nickel and copper. And that's in big disseminated sulfide deposits that are rich in PGEs and gold, tens, hundreds of meters thick in the lower part of that system. That's the opportunity that we see. As mentioned, the JM Reef was found based on parallels from Bushveld. We're basically bringing that home 30 years later and blessed with a really good database to target these things. We have drill-defined mineralization. We'll be talking more about these 3 targets. These are now well on their way to being resources, and we expect to debut those middle of this year. We also have intrusive dunite targets that we'll be touching on. Last point on this slide is that the layered sequence at Montana has been knocked on its side by the Laramide event, by Wyoming to the south here, to the left on the picture. And that's created a very mining-friendly angle here where the mineralization starts at surface, unlike the Bushveld where the layers are still flatline. That means that soil geochemistry is a fantastic exploration tool. We completed this survey to the west in 2019. We got those 3 lovely high-grade, very high-grade soil anomalies. We also expanded significantly the gold potential of the Pine target. It's now 2 kilometers to the west, very high-grade gold in soils and coincident geophysical anomaly. We've also got untested and very high-level copper nickel soil anomalies as well, even in the older part of the survey. There's a good compilation of those 6 and 8 target areas. So the background map here is conductivity, an airborne survey, purple being the highest level of conductor. And then you've got past drill results shown as the dots and squares, with pink being the highest level grade thickness. Grade thickness is a very easy way to measure the total metal content of the rock. More than 25 gram meters grade thickness is considered economically significant. Over 100 is getting really interesting, and we've got lots that are 300s and 500s here. Zooming in a little bit with that same background, but now focused on the 5 most advanced target areas. Those red lines are the IP survey that we we completed in 2020. And that was transformational for us, and that'll be a big thing we'll be talking about today. That has paved the way very nicely for us to expand in terms of scale and grade, and it's already paid a huge dividend. The exploration strategy, given that we have a lot of ground and a lot of high quality targets, is to deliver maiden resources at those most advanced target areas, the 3 that are on the screen now, Crow Mountain, Camp, and HGR. And then get to rapidly expanding them with offset drill programs, basically stepping off from the known into the less known. And we're advancing a number of really compelling early stage targets as well. Those 3 target areas are now advancing towards resources with a target of mid-2021. We're in good shape for that, and we're fully permitted for 50 drill pads. So we're wide open to expand this into the untested conductive highs. At each of those 3 areas in the developing resources, we see thick intervals of continuous mineralization, usually starting at surface and defined by between 11 to 24 drill holes. The zones are between 1 and 1.5 kilometers in strike length, and there's significant expansion potential along trend and to depth based on this IP survey that you're seeing, and also soil and other geophysical surveys. We're focusing on the Crow Mountain results today, but I am going to throw out a teaser with one of our hits from last year's program at Iron Mountain. In fact, the one that was on the cover slide there. Iron Mountain 2019-03, 272 meters at nearly 2 grams platinum equivalent. That is a whopper intercept, 0.42 nickel equivalent. And that includes a higher grade 27 meter portion running about double that grade. That is a Platreef style intercept, 0.35% nickel, good copper, cobalt, and a gram or 2 of PGEs on top of that. That's very compelling stuff, and it's 7 kilometers away from what we just drilled at Crow Mountain this year. So we're seeing fantastic scale in this system. Drill intercepts of hundreds of meters and then kilometers apart, and it's all across that same magmatic horizon. If you imagine that layer cake that we saw in the earlier slide, that whole peridotite zone is highly prospective. So we've got lots of room to grow here, and we're just now targeting very effectively grade and scale. We have the crescent target area, earlier stage, and we have the pine, and that's the high-grade gold that we talked about. Holes from 1980s and the 2000s returned some really good gold intercepts. We've now got a new understanding of how that relates in the magmatic layers, and we look forward to advancing that next year, or this coming year, sorry. Let's take a look at Chrome Mountain and the work we did there this year. Zooming in on Chrome Mountain, there's that peridotite zone as projected on surface. That is the most prospective layer magmatic horizon broadly. And we've got two of our really good hits from past years up there. Really good intercepts of precious metals, 30 meters running 0.6 platinum, 1.25 palladium, and 0.19 nickel. Can't actually. And then in the second hole, 343 meters of 1.62 total platinum equivalent, 0.35 nickel percent. And again, really robust precious metals in there over a good 30-meter interval. We followed that up this year with hole number 1 in the 2020 program, targeting hybrid unit and IP targets, also to learn more about stratigraphy, which is very important in layered systems. And we were rewarded with terrific mineralization, 533 meters, 0.76 platinum equivalent, 0.17 nickel. And within that, 130 meters at nearly a gram total platinum equivalent. So we very successfully expanded the mineralized zone at discovery target. We also saw high-grade platinum and gold in there, and we'll get into that in the cross section. It's platinum rich, which is unusual, and it shows a higher platinum to palladium ratio than we're used to at Stillwater. That reflects that we're in a different magmatic horizon there, a new one. And it's getting away from the normally 3-to-1 palladium rich ratio that our neighbor sees and that we often see. Holes 2 and 3 targeted dunite pipe mineralization and also tested targets identified in that IP survey. And we got hundreds of meters, 120 meters in both holes, running sort of 1.3 total platinum equivalent, 0.28 nickel. And within that, 10 meters, tens of meters, 24 meters at 2.76, 0.6 nickel equivalent. And then again, within that, a tighter interval, 6.1 meters, running 4.5 grams platinum equivalent, 0.98% nickel. And that's running a good 1.1 grams palladium, which is very nice to see. So you're getting the idea here that we typically have broad intervals, 400, 500 meters, continuous, that show fantastic bulk and scale. And then within that, 100 to 150 meters of good underground bulk mineable grade. And then within that, meters, tens of meters sometimes, of more selective mining grades. And that's a theme you'll see throughout the system. And that hole in at hole 2 also included 4.1 meters at 0.58% nickel, good copper and cobalt, and then a whole 1.1 gram of platinum equivalent precious metals on top of that. So we are seeing grade in there within the broader envelope. And worth noting that both these holes showed really good tenor of the nickel in sulfides. That's a term that you'll hear us use more and more. Major mining companies are looking for a certain nickel tenor in sulfides. This is desirable. It's an easy preliminary metallurgical assessment to do to ensure that the nickel will be recoverable and ultimately economic. 3.4% is robust and is looking good, and we've seen up to 10% nickel in sulfides in other holes. We'll be talking about that. Hole 4 is probably the winner of the year. We hit, of course, in all 5 holes, as we tend to do at Stillwater, but hole 4 is probably the darling. This was an offset of an AMAX hole from the 1970s, a short vertical hole, ended in increasing copper and nickel sulfide mineralization. But we saw a much juicier target in the IP survey just below that. So we offset it at the angle that you can, well, you'll see it in the cross section. And we got 455 meters of 1.1 total platinum equivalent and 0.25% total nickel. That's a whopper hit. It included two new thick horizons of nickel sulfide, one of them 54 meters, and then below that 60 meters. And these are both running over 2 grams platinum equivalent, 0.57 nickel and 0.48% nickel respectively. Within that is an 8.5 meter interval of 8.2 grams platinum equivalent. That's 1.1% nickel, 0.19% copper, good cobalt, and nearly 2 grams precious metal platinum equivalent on top of that. That's a really juicy nickel intercept, and it shows terrific preliminary metallurgy with that high tenor nickel sulfide assessment. Definitely one to be followed up on, and certainly mineable. We'll show it to you in a cross section here in a minute. Hole 5 was a test of another test from the IP survey, and it returned multiple new nickel and PGE horizons, and particularly one at depth that's running very high rhodium, and we'll touch on that in the cross section here in a minute. Overall, the program did a great job of expanding the existing mineralization. That was one of the priorities, and we discovered multiple new well-mineralized horizons of battery metals and PGEs. And that success really is credit to the 2020 IP survey that we completed. And I'll give you a preliminary image here in a minute of what we're onto. We're very excited to take what we learned here at Crow Mountain and apply it to camp and HGR in this season. We'll take a look at some cross sections, the 3 shown there, starting on the east of Crow Mountain at the CM17 cross section. This one is quite fun because it's brand new. It's wide open. It's over 1 kilometer away from anything else that's been drilled. And it's a really compelling couple of new horizons of sulfide and PGE mineralization. 149 meters of 1.1 gram platinum equivalent. I mean, imagine if that was a gold hit, and 0.26% nickel equivalent. Strong nickel and PGE mineralization in multiple intercepts, and in particular, that high PGE interval at the base of the hole, 11.6 meters at 2.8 grams total platinum equivalent, 0.61% total nickel. And that's as 0.41 grams platinum, 0.54 grams palladium, and 0.083 grams per ton rhodium, plus other values. At current spot prices, 0.083 grams of rhodium is equivalent to more than 1.6 grams platinum. Rhodium is currently about $27,000 an ounce due to persistent supply deficits. So this is a valuable intercept and strategically desirable in the US. Again, also in this hole, we see a platinum palladium ratio of nearly 1, which is novel for what we've seen to date at Stillwater and what our neighbor mines. And the nickel sulfides showed really good tenor in this intercept as well. 4 holes, all 4 holes that we assessed for nickel tenor this year showed really good nickel tenor. 109 meters at 0.17% nickel, plus all those other values. Turning our attention to cross-section 6, the middle of the 3 cross-sections, we successfully expanded the drill-defined mineralization of the discovery target, which is in the hybrid unit. And that's that hatched mustard-colored area you see up here. This is a later magmatic event, and it's a hybrid of chromite and sulfide mineralization that's very novel and has been seen at the Platte Reef as well. And that's one of the reasons we make that connection, aside from the broad geologic setting. Good mineralization in the hybrid unit, especially for precious metals, 388 meters of a gram, basically, of total platinum equivalent, 0.22% total nickel equivalent. This is a hole from 2007. This is one of the discovery holes at hybrid unit. And within that, you've got 50 meters and 30 meters at higher and higher grades, even over 1 gram palladium, which is really nice to see. So there's some beefy intercepts that stack up really well against what some of our peers are doing. We returned 404 gram meters total grade thickness for platinum, 88.5% meters of total nickel equivalent grade thickness, and that's some of the best hits recorded for either commodity in the past couple of years. Total mineralization, top to bottom, continuous, 533 meters at 0.76 platinum equivalent, 0.17 nickel, and within that an interval higher grade at 130. Continuous nickel copper sulfide mineralization, impressive size, and definitely expanded the resource that we're developing at that site. Within that, 2.4 meters of 2.5 grams gold and 9.8 meters of half-gram platinum, both as a co-product with other values, but nice to see them making an appearance there. This cross-section is a lot of fun. This is number 4, and this includes a couple of the past hits plus our hole 4. Hole from 2007, again, the hybrid unit, the discovery of the hybrid unit back then. 226 meters at 1.5 grams total platinum equivalent. And again, within that, 24 meters at higher grade, and then a 9-meter intercept that's running over a gram of palladium, plus a lot of other values. This is really good stuff and well mineralized. We returned in holes 2 and 3, 126 meters at 1.3 total platinum equivalent, 0.29% total nickel equivalent, and 24 meters of 2.76 within that, and then 6.1 meters of 4.5. Similar results in hole 3. You can see the mafic dike there sort of ends the grade of interest, but that above that, it's compelling. Hole 4, again, the darling, whopper 515 meters of gram meters, sorry, total platinum equivalent grade equivalent, and 112% meters of total nickel equivalent grade equivalent. That's a whopper intercept that speaks very well to the broadly mineralized nature of the Stillwater complex. And as you can see, we're vectoring in on those areas that are higher grade and mineable, potentially mineable. Within that, 2 new horizons of nickel sulfide, as shown there, going downhole. 54 meters, 2.58 grams per ton platinum equivalent, 0.57% nickel equivalent, really nice stuff. 60 meters of 2.2 grams per ton total platinum equivalent, 0.48 nickel, and really good nickel tenor shown in both. There's that 8.5 meter intercept at 1.1% nickel sitting up there. Unexpected, and that's why we explore. Really strong grade, really strong nickel tenor, wide open for expansion. It's important to note the scale on this figure. The scale bar down at the bottom there is 100 meters. So you're very quickly at a kilometer scale here. And that 8.5 meter hit is awfully enticing. We'll be back next year, or sorry, this year, in the next program, to expand that. It very quickly could add significant nickel and at really good grades and nickel tenor. We also saw new nickel sulfide horizons and high tenor nickel in holes 2 and 3, and then the lower interval in hole 4 as well, 54 meters of 0.27% nickel with a gram of precious metals on top of that as platinum equivalent, plus copper and cobalt. That's a nice intercept, and it also shows really good high tenor nickel sulfides in a preliminary assessment. So we mentioned that IP survey. That was one of the best things we did last year. You're seeing a preliminary image here. This is the chargeability anomaly at a 45 millivolt per volt cutoff. It's a very high cutoff. This is a very high level chargeability anomaly. And it spans the 11 kilometers of the survey, which speaks to the fantastic scale that we see at Stillwater. When you add in the known drill-defined mineralized zones that you saw earlier in the figures. You see why this is getting so compelling. At camp target, AMAX drilled historically a nice mineralized zone of 0.42% nickel, 0.23 copper, and that's part of the resource that we're developing there now. Very limited PGE assays on that. Back in the 70s, they were looking for 1% nickel, and they didn't have PGEs in mind. Clearly, that has Platreef potential. That's the right base metal grade. We know it's got PGEs on top of it. We're now expanding that. We drilled camp in 2019 and confirmed that. It also shows really good preliminary metallurgy completed by AMAX in the 70s as well. And that'll be the subject of an upcoming news release. The key point here is that where that comes to surface, where AMAX was able to see that historically and drill it, that's where their historic resource is. We're seeing in this IP survey all this potential at depth. This has opened it up enormously. It's showing us where to go. What's not shown here as well is the resolution that you can get when you zoom in on this. That's exactly what we did up in the Crow Mountain area in 2020, and that's what gave us a lot of those really nice hits, including that hit in hole 4, the 8.5 meters at 1.1% nickel. That was a direct product of this survey. It's a huge validation of the method. The results surprised us. We've got terrific correlation of known mineralized zones with the chargeability highs that you see here, and also the conductivity figure, which very tightly correlates chargeability. Actually, it sits slightly lower, but you'll see that in an upcoming news release, along with our plans for 2021, which will be our biggest year yet, and we're looking at a multi-rig program. I think I've covered off the bullet points here pretty well. We made the initial acquisition in 2017. We quickly got to work at Stillwater and tripled the land position as we got into the database. 2019, we began those block models. We drilled it for the first time at camp and HGR. 2020, we completed our Crow Mountain drill program and released results from 2019. We've hit now in every hole that we've drilled. It's easy pickings. 2021 priorities, those resources, and we're on target for mid-2021, a few months out from now, to release those. Expand known mineralization into untested areas. We're again working out from drill-defined mineralization and into those adjacent untested highs, and then continue to identify and prioritize new targets. Upcoming news flow, very shortly here, you'll see the final IP results with some really good looking, compelling images and how they correlate with those zones that we're identifying. And with that, our 2021 exploration plans as well. Formal resource estimates expected mid-2021. And we've got some other goodies we're working on as well. We are looking for deals on our non-core assets as well, and we'll announce those as they become relevant. There's a quick look at the Ontario project. We share the district with Treasury's Goliath Gold Complex. 127 holes in the database, 30 kilometers of strike, under-tested. We're getting a lot of interest in this right now, we'll do a deal at the right time. We've got low carrying costs on it. Similarly, in the Yukon, the Well Green deposit, Nickel Creek Platinum up there in green, one of the largest PGE nickel copper projects undeveloped in the world. And we share that geology all down the belt through the Kluane ultramafic system. That one also is for sale. And again, we have low carrying costs, and we're in no rush. Market stuff. We are fully funded through what we need to do at present, delivering resources and setting up for 2021. 3 million in the bank and 13 million in the money, warrants and options, and those are coming in. Share price recently 40 cents gives us a 60 million market cap. That's a fraction of what our peers comparables might be. I say might because we don't directly have peers in North America. The Platreef style mix of commodities is very rare globally. We think very desirable. It's naturally balanced between precious and base metals. And really, you have to go to South Africa, to the Platreef, to find peers and comparables. And those are much larger companies at much later stages than us. We are working up a peers slide, though. I guess the point there is that the peers that we have in North America double 4 times our market cap from where we are. So we see a lot of room to go up from our present position. Good shareholdings by management and associates, 26%, and the institutional base is growing nicely, 22%. And that includes Sprott Asset, US Global, and a number of other famous names. We're excited by what we see at Stillwater. The potential for grade and scale is truly extraordinary. I hope I got that across. It's a fantastic big mineralized system. It's rare for a junior to have it 100% like that, especially 31 kilometers of strike length. And we're now vectoring in on those bits that are truly, truly exciting. I think some of the hits we had at Crow Mountain speak very well to the potential of the IP survey to deliver. We're excited.
The first question right out of the gate, Mike, just circles back to the term nickel tenor. And I'm gonna marry up 2 questions here because there's one about metallurgy. So maybe just a little more color on nickel tenor and how that
Sure.
applies at Stillwater West and what that means for metallurgy.
Yeah, it speaks to how much nickel is present in the sulfides. In fact, anybody can do this calculation. Again, it was taught to us by one of the largest base metal miners globally. And it's a very useful tool in giving a project a quick assessment. Basically, if you're given a nickel and a sulfur assay, you can make an assumption about the total sulfides that usually holds in magmatic systems and arrive at a number that is the percent of nickel in 100% sulfide. If that makes sense. So our 1.1% nickel assay in core, that might become 6% nickel when you take out everything else and only focus on the sulfides. That's the number they want to know. Is that number greater than 3% is a threshold of interest to them. Below that, and metallurgy may be an issue, it may not be, but it's an important early test that one can do and a valuable tool to have in the toolbox. We're seeing really high nickel tenors at Stillwater. The majority of what we saw this year was over 3, which is the threshold value, and we saw them up to 10% nickel in 100% sulfide.
So maybe just flesh that out a little more as to just early understanding of what the metallurgy might look like.
Yeah, that's important stuff. In these nickel projects, metallurgy is really king. You know, it's not uncommon to have 50% recoveries. AMEX did excellent work in the 70s in preliminary flotation tests on that camp target with nickel copper sulfide drill core. And we saw production of potentially saleable cons with potentially saleable PGE components as well. So very encouraging. Again, preliminary, but even using the single stage flotation of the 1970s technology, they were able to get good recoveries and potentially saleable products. So we are following up on that now. We are gathering samples, especially from those juicy intervals in hole 4, and looking forward to doing more on that.
Next question, very simply, when do you expect to get started with 2021 drilling?
We're already started now in that we're in the core shack. Drilling will be June or July. And we will run, we're targeting, this is getting into our next news release a little bit, Chris, but we're going to look at a multi-rig program this year. And we look forward to following up those IP targets that did so well for us at Crow Mountain. We've only just scraped the surface in terms of what that survey showed us. So we've more to do at Crow Mountain. We really look forward to applying them back at camp and HGR. It's important to remember that a lot of the 31,000 meters of data that are informing these resources, 3 of them at the 3 sites, a lot of that was drilled for different target types. And some of it was drilled without geophysics. You know, it wasn't optimized. The numbers look good. These are unapologetically good resources, but they really are just the starting point for us. And we saw that in this program with 8.5 meters of 1.1% nickel. That's the kind of expansion we can do in terms of grade and scale. This is a huge, well-mineralized system. We're finding those pods, tens, hundreds of meters thick within those multi-hundred meters that are particularly compelling.
It's been written that you have a number of non-disclosure agreements with majors. Is this true? And if so, do you see an agreement coming to fruition this year?
We've talked to basically every major that you can name that would be relevant to the space. The Stillwater name tends to get you in the door, and or they just show up at your core shack. We do have CAs in place. We're very encouraged by the appetite, by the interest. We're also often grateful for the insight and what they advise what they'd like to see in our programs. Majors typically do not do deals at early stages that are friendly for juniors. So, we will do the right deal at the right time. For now, we don't know really what this asset is worth, except that it's worth a lot more. Everything that we're doing is showing us that there's a lot of value to be added here, a lot of low-hanging fruit, just starting with the resources that we were just talking about, but let alone stepping out into those adjacent untested highs, adding grade, adding scale. There's a lot to be done. If we get the right offer sooner rather than later, we'll certainly take it. But our vision for now is to keep growing by the drill bit, and we see great potential to do that.
I guess it's pretty telling that my knee-jerk response to reading that question was that that must be talking about Black Lake Drayton and Kluane versus Stillwater, since those ones are ones that we're actively
Sorry.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think it was talking about Stillwater, but I just echoing what you were saying is that I think we can build a lot of value before we start looking at
let's continue that then and just finish the thought. First of all, Sibanye and Robert Friedland and Tesla have all said they're looking for battery metals in the U.S. And that's music to our ears. We just drilled some very compelling intervals, and I expect we've got their attention more than ever. Regarding Black Lake Drayton and Kluane, yeah, they're basically for sale, but on the right terms. We indeed have particular interest in Black Lake. Treasury has done fabulous work there. 3 million ounces and a permit to build a mill. They're on their way. It's a no-brainer to consolidate that district. And we've got really good interest from groups of size on that project.
Where does Stillwater East fit in drilling plans? But I'll toss in there the just maybe talk about the reef style targets at Stillwater and if there's any plans with respect to those.
We may do some prospecting at the Picket Pin this year. It's really not a priority for us. It's there. These things have been drilled before. They're there, they're real. Picket Pin runs 6 grams platinum, but it's a little inconsistent so far. But having said that, it's only got 18 holes across 25 kilometers. So we see really big low-hanging fruit in the Platte Reef stuff. That's our focus. And really, that's exactly what Sibanye wants, is battery metals. They don't need more reef. They've got one of the biggest and best in the world right there with multi-decade mine lives. We do drill, final thought on reefs, we do indeed drill reef formations on our way down sometimes. In those cross sections, you can see reefs in the upper parts of holes. So they're there, we map them, we track them.
And then the actual question was with respect to Stillwater East, the newest acquisition, and any exploration plans there.
Yeah, very compelling geophysical anomaly there, and good indications. No plans to drill it this year. We need to be focused on those 3 most advanced areas. We've got a lot of targets across 31 kilometers. The best thing we can do is revalue the company around those resources, get onto bigger programs, and then get onto those earlier stage targets.
Mike, any final thoughts?
Well, it just occurred to me, I didn't really drive it home on that district slide, but Sibanye is mining just 500 meters north of us, right? From that lovely nickel hit we just had at Chrome Mountain, from our discovery target area. They're actually quite close underground there. And that's not to say that they're the only potential suitor by any means, but it's just worth driving home how good the setup is here and how rare our position is.